Let's face it, we never thought we were going to see this day come, but I'm here to show you just how easy it is to set up emulation on an iPhone. I can't believe I'm saying those words, but let's get into it. It was only a couple of weeks ago that Apple made this announcement that they were going to allow emulators in the App Store, and to our disbelief, this is actually happening, and we have our first legitimate one in Delta right here. And as of the recording of this video in April 2024, you can find this app in the App Store right now. And I have to say, this is by far the easiest emulator to set up that I've ever encountered, and I have to give huge props to the Delta team for making this so accessible. So when you open up Delta, when it's brand new, you won't have any games in it, of course. You have to add your own ROMs, but it's so easy. All you do is go right up here to the top to this little plus symbol, you tap it, you go to Files, and you navigate to a folder where you have your ROMs saved. So for me, I set up in my iCloud drive on my Mac folders with various game systems. So for example, I have an NES folder where I put my Nintendo games, and all you do is just select one, then you can go down here and hit select all and import all of your games. It doesn't take long to import, and once they're in here, there they are, listed under NES. Now I've got some Super Nintendo games, some N64 games, some Game Boy games, Game Boy Advance, and Nintendo DS. So you'll notice that I have cover art on most of these. I'm going to show you here. Sometimes it won't download the cover art for whatever reason because of how the file is named, but all you have to do, this is so simple, you just long press on it, go down here to change artwork, then you have some options. You can go to files and select your own screenshot or your own image that you've downloaded, or you can go to your photo library and do the same thing. You can get something copied from your clipboard, or you can go to games database, and that's actually probably the easiest thing to do. So I'm just going to go here, we're going to search for GoldenEye, and you'll see that they just kind of pop right up here, and you got a few options for different games under that name. We're just going to go with this one, and boom, there it is. So it's really that simple, and there are only a few that I had to do that to. Most of them grabbed a cover art automatically. But here you'll see that I did do screenshots on a couple of these, so I can actually fix those too. All you have to do is long press again is hit change artwork. But I did screenshots because it's really that simple. If I wanted to do that on Super Mario Bros. 3, I could just do this, and you'll see that it loads the screen right here, and I just waited for the title to pop up. Bam. Screenshot. And then what I did was I just cropped this in just like this, saved it to files right here in the NES folder, and then when I went to change artwork, I could go to files, NES, and pick that screenshot, and then just hit open, and it would change that to that screenshot that I just took. But I like the box art, so we're gonna change these to the box art. I just wanted to show you how to do that because it does give you an easy way to do this in case you can't find the box art for whatever reason. That's really very simple. Super Mario Bros. 2 right here. Super Mario Bros. plus Duck Hunt. Now I know people in the comments are going to be like, yeah, but where do you get the ROMs? Well, I can't tell you where to get the ROMs, but there is this tool called a search engine, and all you have to do is type in what you want to find, and it will help you find it. So go ahead and try that and see if you can figure it out. And then what I did was I just made folders for each of the systems that this supports. This does support, by the way, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo 64, and Nintendo DS. And that's pretty awesome. So I want to show you real quick. One of the things that this doesn't do is it doesn't allow you to use shaders. So you can't like make your screen look like it's an old CRT or make the Game Boy games have that green screen effect. These are just going to be black and white. So it'll look like this. It'll just be in black and white, and you can't change that in this emulator. However, what I haven't seen anybody else talking about is that Game Boy Color games actually do show up in color. See right there? And so you can play Game Boy Color games in color, and you'll see that you have these skins here for the controls, and they all look pretty cool. They have these really vibrant colors. To exit a game, you hit the menu button, and it's going to pull up a few options here. You've got save state, load state. You can put in your own cheat codes. You do have to put those in individually though, from like your Game Shark and Game Genie and stuff like that. You have a fast forward option, and you can use the hold buttons option, which allows you to just have a button selected as if if you were holding it down. And that comes in useful, let's say for Super Mario Bros. 3. It's really difficult to hold that B button down to run and jump with a touchscreen like this. So what you can do is go to menu, say hold button, select the button you want to hold, then push menu to finish, go ahead and resume, and now Mario is dead. Let's try that one more time. You can watch the power meter up down there at the bottom fill up. So it's not a perfect solution because it does still feel a little bit weird to be using a touchscreen. I will note that you don't have to let go of the screen to get your finger off of the button. You can actually just slide your thumb back and forth and it will continue to move, which is pretty cool. So as you can see, this is more than playable with the touchscreen, but you don't have to use touchscreen controls, because this does have controller support, plug and play controller support at that. I'll show you that now. And once you plug in the controller, the on-screen controls go away. And one of the other things you can do, because sometimes the default controls are not mapped super well, you can go in and you can remap these controls, and I'll show you how to do that too. So to remap the controls, all you have to do is go to the gear icon up in the top corner there. You're going to see listed the controller that you have plugged in or the controller you have connected over Bluetooth, and notice that you can have up to 4 players, which is pretty awesome. So you can actually connect 4 different controllers to this over Bluetooth and play, say, Mario Kart 64 with 4 players on the screen. But if you tap on the controller you're using, you can go down here to customize controls, and that's going to pull up this screen where you're going to see your touchscreen controls, and you'll notice that you have all of your buttons for playing the game, but also a couple of other options: your quick save, your quick load, and your fast forward. So for NES, I've mapped my Y button as B and my B button as A so that I can run and kind of jump at the same time. All my directional buttons are the same for the D-pad. Start and select are the plus and minus buttons. And then I made R1 my quick save, and L1 my quick load, and R2 my fast forward button, which is pretty awesome. I love the fact that you can just fast forward through the really slow parts of some of these retro games. Like, let's say you're playing Pokemon and there's just a lot of talking and you want to fast forward through all the talking. You can do that, and it's super easy. I just hold down my R2 button now. Once you're done, you hit save. If you need to start over, you can hit reset. You can also select the console up here at the top, and you can see the different ones that they have available, and you can pick any of these and map the buttons to make things more convenient. Like Nintendo 64, for example, has the Z button up here on top as an actual button. Well, that's a trigger on the Nintendo 64 controller. So I've mapped that to R2 because I thought that made the most sense. Actually, probably L2 makes the most sense if you've played N64 and you know that you had your left hand there in the middle pulling that Z trigger, but I mapped it to R2 for this emulator. So mapping those buttons is super easy. You just tap the button you want to map and then tap the physical button you want to map it to, and you're done. Going through some of the other options here, you can pick different controller skins for those on-screen controllers. You'll have to download those. They don't come with extra ones, but there is a repository of those online. You can change your controller opacity. You can toggle on respect silent mode, so when you have your phone on vibrate, the emulator won't play any of the game music or any of the noises unless you take it off vibrate, or you can turn this off and it'll play the game sounds no matter what. You can choose to have haptic feedback for when you touch the buttons. I recommend leaving those on if you're going to use on-screen controls, because it really does help you know that, hey, yeah, I pushed that button. It gives it just a little bit of a tactile response. I'm going to come back to Delta Sync here in a second. For haptic touch, this is kind of cool. You can do home screen shortcuts. So right now it's just set to recently played games, but you can actually turn that off and delete those and pick any of your games on your shortcut, and I'll show you what I mean. If you long press on the Delta icon, you'll have up to 4 games that come up here. So let's say I just wanted to jump right into Tetris DX. I hit that and it's going to load that game right up. And while I'm on this game, I wanted to show you the difference between the colors on, say, the RG35XX versus this emulator here on the iPhone. Obviously the iPhone screen is much better display than what's in the RG35XX, but the color differences really did stand out to me. It's much more vibrant and deep and rich on the iPhone versus this, even though I'm using the same ROM. The touchscreen controller skin also changes dynamically when you turn it into landscape mode, which is pretty cool too. And once you connect the controller, that will go away. Let's go back to the settings. Now for all of these systems, you don't have to download any special emulators or any BIOS files or anything like that except for the Nintendo DS. The Nintendo DS, you'll see under the settings, you've got Nintendo DS, you're using Melon DS, and if you scroll down to the bottom of that, you're going to see that it does require these BIOS files, and you have to provide those. And again, you can use a search engine, search for BIOS7.bin DS or BIOS9.bin DS files. You're going to find those very easily using a search engine, and then once you've found them and downloaded them to your device here, you just tap on BIOS7.bin, find the file, select the file, and it's going to put a purple check mark next to it. Do that for those three, and once you have those BIOS files installed, you're going to be able to play DS games. You'll see that I've quick loaded a file. It all works really well. It sounds really good too. I'll let you hear a little bit of it. So DS runs like a dream on here. In fact, everything I've played pretty much has ran perfectly. The one thing that I will say is that there are times when I couldn't get the Nintendo 64 to run quite right. And I think that because there's no options to change the core that's being used, like you can't change this to rice or change the emulator being used here, there are just some games that just won't run correctly. Now for the most part everything will, but an example of this would be like I was playing Shadows of the Empire. The first couple of levels, the Battle of Hoth, ran super well, perfectly actually, and then the escape from the rebel base on Hoth, that ran very well. But then you get to the third level where you have to escape through the asteroid field, and suddenly I just saw this, just stars, and occasionally something would flicker in, and it was impossible to play. In fact, I could not beat this level. I kept dying. I think I just did die. Yep. Oh wait, no, I'm back. Because I couldn't see anything long enough to actually take down the TIE fighters and take down the asteroids before they hit me and stuff. So there's a few weird things like that when it comes to N64, and that's just how it is, and there's no way to fix that as far as I can tell at this moment. But a lot of other games ran extremely well, better than even like on some of the retro handhelds that I have. An example of that would be Cruisin' USA. This game runs silky smooth, and it should. I mean, the iPhone 15 Pro is a very powerful device and a very expensive device, so it should run better than a $100 retro handheld. But it's just kind of funny because you don't think of emulation when you think about Apple devices, and so to see it running so well, especially for the first available emulator on the App Store to be running these games so well, it's just kind of shocking. I'm still kind of taken aback by how well this works. Now, I know Android users in the comments are going to laugh at iPhone users and say, we've been able to do this for years. Well, I know you have, Johnny, but let's just call this what it is. It's a win for emulation everywhere, and for game preservation everywhere, that Apple, the most popular smartphone manufacturer in the world, is now allowing this to take place. And the last couple of months haven't been super kind to the emulation scene, and so I see this as a huge win, and that's why I'm in first place. There are 130 million iPhone users in the USA alone, and so this is a pretty big deal for a lot of people. And the more people you give access to something like this, the harder it's going to be to take it away. And the very last thing I want to show you here is this Delta Sync. You can select a service, you can set up a folder in either Google Drive or Dropbox, you can sign in right here, and once you've done that, it will sync your games, save data, save states, and cheats between devices. So you could download this onto your Mac, onto your iPad, or any other device that will run Delta, so that my progress syncs across all of my devices. And I love that. I love that that's a feature. I've wanted that in these things for a long time, because I often start a game on one and then I move on to playing on another one. I got to restart the game all over again. And it's just kind of a hassle. So again, props, all the props to Delta and the team over there. They've done an incredible job with this, and I can't wait to see what they have coming down the pipeline. But that about wraps it up for this review. What do you think of Delta? Are you willing to give this a try? Do you think Apple will end up changing the rules about emulation again and kicking this out of the App Store? Or is emulation here to stay for the millions of iPhone users out there? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with a friend. Stay kind and encouraging out there, and I'll catch you on the flippity flip.